So this is class 15 of mechanical design. We'll continue where we left behind previously, that is in the helical gears portion. Okay. Yes. So what was different in this particular problem? We were asked to design a pair of helical gears with starting torque 50% more than the running torque. So this actually equates to CS as 1.5 times. Okay, something that should be added in extra than the average torque. So the starting torque is 50% more. So that definitely means that the service factor is 1.5. Okay, this is one very important conclusion and the major change in this problem. Fine. Here in this problem, we don't have diameter, we don't have teeth. Okay, because you can see that here 15 kilowatts is given, that is power getting transmitted. I think we have written all of those things. N1 has 10,000 RPM, gear is of 2,500 RPM, which is N2. Then helix angle is 20 degrees, and the materials we have already seen, and we have classified that sigma D1 is 233.4 and sigma D2 is 172.6. Now pressure angle is 20. Okay, so that is also usually what we take, and since it is not given, you can assume full depth. Okay, need not go for a stub teeth combination. Now with I is equal to N1 by N2, it is 10,000 by 2,500, which is the ratio, gear ratio is 4, which is applicable both to spur and helical gear as D2 by D1 and Z2 by Z1. Now to start with, we don't have diameter, we don't have teeth, so both cannot be unknown. Okay, if there are two unknowns like this, that is diameter also not known and teeth is also not known, what is the issue? We cannot even start the problem with this. We cannot even move ahead, even finding out the weaker member. So what we do is, we start off with something, we select something that adheres to whatever the empirical values have been given for us. So according to table 12.4b on page 230, for 20-degree full depth, the minimum teeth that is required to avoid interference is Z1 is 18, and if Z1 is 18, then Z2 becomes 4 times Z1, which is 72 teeth. Okay, so we'll start off with something that we can take directly from the table and empirical values. So once you know that Z1 is 18 and Z2 is 72, then you can proceed. That is, you know the number of teeth. Okay. Again, this 18 and 72, whatever is selecting here, this is not a temporary assumption. We are going to continue this until the end of the problem, and if we are able to not find a solution over there with the given existing condition, then we will have the choice to come back and change this from 18 to some other number. Okay, maybe we can take 20 or 22 and try to reach a correct solution given all of the parameters are fixed.
So sir, it's just a trial and error method.
Yes, a trial and error method, yes. But here in this particular problem, I can tell you right now that you will get some solution with all other factors being treated the same. Okay, and see, for example, in helical gears, one of the biggest assumptions that we do is, see, K will be usually taken as 15. Okay, this is one of the major assumptions that we do. Okay, usually it is taken as 15. There is no hard and fast rule that you should take it as 15. But this 15 usually being an average value solves most of our problems. Suppose, say, you did not get even with 15, something happened that is required is not setting up, and maybe it is going to preference 2 in the module. Okay, or something else. For example, there are some cases where teeth is also given and diameter should not exceed some limit. Then these factors will begin to change. You may have to change some assumptions that you have done throughout your design. Okay, for example, you are designing a gearbox. Now you see Z1 is 18. Once 18 is set, you are free to choose any diameter. But suppose say diameter is locked, then you have to come back and choose Z and find a compromise. Okay, diameter also should not be very high, Z also should not be very high. Then what else to change? Then you can go with changing this 15 value. Maybe you can take 12.5 13, 13.5, 14, and so on. Of course, we don't, in your paper, that is in your written paper, end sem paper, or even in your internals paper, we do not give such a problem that you'll keep on iterating and keep on iterating and finding, go on and on finding the value, because this is only a part of the paper. So we choose a problem where you will arrive at the solution quickly. Okay, so that part is there, that help is there. But in the real world scenario, see, diameter is one constraint. Okay, diameter of a gear is one constraint. The number of teeth on it is one more constraint. And then the internal parameters like K, what should be the face width ratio and all those things is one more constraint. Okay, so balance of all these parameters will give you the most optimum solution for that particular application. Because some things you can never change. You can never change N1 and N2. You can never change the kilowatt being transmitted. Okay, so keeping in mind these factors, we'll understand that, okay, since nothing is given, you are free to choose something like the number of teeth in this problem. Okay, now since we have already chosen Z1 and Z2, okay, Z1 and Z2, Z1 is 18 and Z2 is 72. Let us see here what happens to ZE1. Okay, the usual procedure. ZE1 is equal to Z1 by cos cube beta. What is a beta angle? Over here, we know that in the problem, beta is 20 degrees. So substitute 20 degrees over here. Again, see that your calculators are in degree mode when you substitute for cos 20. Okay, otherwise, by default, your calculator will take it as radians, which is going to give you a wrong solution. So Z1 by cos cube beta. I am getting around value here 21.69, just confirm. And
Yes, sir.
ZE, yeah, and Z2 is cos cube beta, which should give you 86.70. Okay, again, not a temporary assumption, it's a permanent assumption that we do for this particular problem. Okay, Y1 for 20 degree full depth is 0.154 minus 0.912 by ZE1. Similarly, Y2 is 0.154 minus 0.912 by ZE2. I may not write the equation numbers here again and again, it may, because they're just avoiding time delay. But by the time you practice like 10-15 problems, immediately you'll get by-hearted with all those things like Y1 and Y2, what are the parameters for 20 degree full depth steep. Yeah, so if you do this, then how much is Y1?
0.11.
Yes, 0.112, correct. And Y2 is 0.14. Point 1435 we are going to get. So sigma d1 y1 is some value, and sigma d2 y2 will compare what is the product. Yeah, what's the value?
26.14.
Yes, good. Next, sigma d2 y2.
24.76.
Yeah, so obviously this is lesser, so pinion is weaker. Hold on, oh sorry, 24, right? Yeah, then it is gear. So design for strength is based on gear. Yeah. Now since we know, see, this is a situation where Z is known and diameter is not known. Then immediately our attention will go with Mn cube Cv, the modified form of the equation, into Mt Cw cos beta by sigma d. This is K capital Y Z. Yeah. So this is the modified form of the equation we have been using. Sigma d. Yeah, all parameters done according to 12.24p. Okay. So we'll assume some values here because some values are not clearly given. Nothing is mentioned about what kind of lubrication it contains. So what we'll do is Cw is 1.15. Frequent lubrication, okay. Regular lubrication we can assume Cw is equal to 1.15. K value, as I just now discussed, let it be equal to 15 because the range is from 12.5 to 20. Okay. What about Mt value? 9.55 to 10 power 6 PCS by N. In this case, I'll take N2. So 9.55 10 power 6. This is the torque transmitted on the gear. So I think the power was 15 kilowatts. Yeah. So 15 kilowatts. 1.5 is the service factor, and N2 is 2,500.
85950.
Yes. M cube Cv, sorry, I should say Mn cube Cv must be equal to 2 into 85950 into 1.15 into cos of 20 degrees divided by 172.6 into 15 into pi into y2 which is 0.1435 multiplied by z. So in this case you have to go with z2. Okay, you are designing with respect to gear. To be more precise, I can put here mt2 sigma d2 y2 z2. Okay, k is common for both.
2.21.
2.1, yes, good. Mn cube Cv is, I'll write it here again, 2.21. This is the required value. Yeah, Mn cube Cv is the required value. Now we will go with the iterations. The normal module. Once you set the module, your d2 will be fixed. d2 is equal to mnz2 by cos beta. Then v will be fixed, pi d2 capital N2 by 60,000. Then Cv, depending on what v value will be. So v value is in meters per second. This d2 will be in mm. Cv is just a factor. Then the product Mn cube Cv. Looking at the value, we understand that even after cubing, it comes to a very low value of 2. So let us start from 2 itself. Okay, 3 means it is 3 cube is 27. It will become a huge value. So no need of iterating in that region. We will start with 2 and find out where it approaches. So 2 mm, with 2 mm as the normal module, what will be the diameter now?
153.24.
Yeah, getting 153.24. Velocity in meters per second.
$80.23.
80, quite high.
20.06.
Yes, 20 is fine. Yeah, 80 is quite high. Just check your value. So pi into d2.
20.06, yes, sir.
Yeah, into n2 by 60,000. CV value for velocity greater than 20 is you can say 5.55 by 5.55 plus root of v according to CV factor, that is a series of equations from 12.5a to 12.5e. Which category suits? So here it is greater than 20 meters per second, so that is why this formula will be made applicable, and you should get around 0.55.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So mn cube CV will be
4.42.
yes 4.424. Now this is quite high because your required is only 2.21. So let us go one step back, that is slightly lesser. Of course, if you go to 1, it will be very less because it will never approach 2. Why we can say that is just by looking at it. CV value is something which is always less than 1. So this factor should be more than 1. Only then you will get 2.2. So if you use 1 here, it is not going to create any effect. So let us try with 1.5 and check. Okay. Again, whatever you are selecting, preferred choice 1. Okay. Whether it is helical or spur gear, always see that it is preferred choice 1. You may have 1.75 in preferred choice 2, but we are not going to that unless it is extremely necessary. Whereas you have diameter constraint and center distance constraint and something else like even the face width is constrained, then you will go with the choice 2 to satisfy lastly that particular parameter. Otherwise, always go with choice 1. So 1.5, yeah. If 1.5 is there, then this will be
114.93.
yes, and this will be
15.04.
15.04. This is in the range from 10 to 20 meters per second. So considering this range, we'll go with Barth's formula, that is C 12.25 C, which is 15.25 by 15.25 plus V. We'll go with
0.503.
good 0.503, and mn cube CV will be
1.69.
yes 1.69. So you can see that one is going lesser and one is going above. Okay. In between, of course, you may be pressured to take 1.75, but again it is choice 2, as you can see in the table. Correct. 1.75 should be choice 2 as far as we remember in the series of modules. So you can check once more in the series of tables. Yeah, table 12.2. I'll write it here. Table 12.2. From here you are choosing. So preferred choice 1 is 1.5. You do have 1.75, but that is choice 2. So we'll not go for that. Maybe 1.75 will just go above 2 or even touch 3. Okay. I don't have the calculation with me here because anyway we are going with choice 1. So according to choice 1, even if it is 2, no problem, it is in the safer region, double than what is required. 2.2 is required, it is 4.4. Okay, so you can say mm cube CV to be adopted should be greater than mn cube CV which is required. So we'll go with mn is equal to 2 mm itself, okay, not 1.5. This is 2 mm. If this is 2 mm, then D2 as calculated will be 153.24 mm. Accordingly, D1 will be by 4, right? 153.24 by 4, which comes out to be around 38.31 mm. Okay, face width B will be K times Mn. We have selected it to be 15, so 15 into 2, which is 30. That is what is asked in the problem. If you can go back, determine the face width and module. Module we have done. Now from the module we got the face width. Okay, yeah, so I hope you have taken it down, and this problem is does not have any doubts from your side. There was a question from one of your students last time, so I would like to just clarify that, give my inputs based on that. So you were confused whether which one to use. Okay, so once the design for strength is done, when we calculated Ft, we usually choose the equation 2mt by d. Okay, then whichever d1 or d2, whichever is chosen. Okay, of course, anyone you choose, both the answer will be the almost the same, because m2 will be adjusted, torque will be different for pinion or gear, and accordingly diameter will be adjusted. Now this gives us the, see what this gives us, whenever there is a power transmission, and if this is a gear, this is the Ft that we are talking about. Okay, the tangential stress which gives rise to the bending stress at the root. Okay, okay, these are the locations of the bending stress. Okay, if you go for Lewis equation for helical, that is 12.24, if you go there, you see the what are the things that are asked there. See, Mn by Cw, and we also found out that Ft value will be different if you use this formula after you do this value, that is valuation of Mn is already with us. Okay, the module that is calculated is already with us. But notice that, see, Cw is something that which we have assumed, okay, and Mn is also that we have calculated, and until we get Mn, we are only making trial and error. In the previous problem itself, in this problem itself, whatever we calculated, you understand that required is around 2.21. Okay, required Mn cube Cv was found to about 2.21, and we adopted was around 4.4, double. Okay, we could not go anything lower than this because there is preferred one choice. Actually, what is required, if this is a required, then the actual value will be around how much? See, for this we do not know. We took it and Mn came out to be 2. So do we require maybe say 1.6, 1.7, maybe 1.8 and so on. Okay. If you put this exact value, there is a high chance you'll get that Ft back. And also, see, Cw is around 1.15. We are taking for all problems. Okay. Suppose say the Cw value is equal to 1. What does it mean? If Cw is equal to 1, it means there is no lubrication at all. Okay. There is no lubrication at all. When you add some values like 1.15 or 1.2 and so on, this lubricant will ease the, it's kind of reduce the Ft stresses on the gear. Okay. So these are the external parameters that we keep on adding. But at the same time, this Ft whatever we calculate for the dynamic factor, okay, this Ft whatever we calculate for the dynamic factor is got from the base equation, that is the base condition for which the problem is defined. Why MT came from? MT came from the power that is getting transmitted. So for a power that is getting transmitted, without considering Cw and without considering the rounding off for the higher value of Mn, this Ft will be taken care. Okay, so that is why we go with this normal method, that is torque is equal to tangential load into radius. So that is why we go with normal method. We do not use this formula back again. Okay, so we will not get say our optimum value may be when solving for 2.21, if you say, then the optimum value may be coming around say 1.7 or 1.8, which are anyway not going to take. So that is why we will not be going with the Lewis equation at this junction, that is when we calculate this Ft value in order to calculate from here, which implies Fd, which is Ft plus K3V and so on. You know the whole formula, very large one, to calculate the dynamic value inside, which is C. Okay, so calculate to get the value of C and also to calculate the dynamic factor, we are going with the normal understanding of putting the tangential load on a stationary gear. Okay, on a stationary gear. So this is dynamic. Remember, this is dynamic load. This Ft refers to the kind of stationary load or static load. Okay, this is static load plus some allowance due to the rotation, because it is, we know the C is always dependent on V, which in turn, okay, I would say, okay, this should be E here. There is velocity V, from that we get E, from E we choose what is C. Okay, so it all depends on what velocity this entire setup will carry. So that is the meaning of dynamic load. I think this has cleared a part of your doubt, because why we don't use Cw, that we have understood. Why Mn is not used, if you put Mn as a higher value, okay, so this will adjust for the new value of Ft, of course, which is not a proper case, because Cw, when calculating this stresses, we are not in any way considering this Cw. When is equal to 1 means there is no lubrication. Okay, when it equal to 1 means that does not exist. Okay, something that is added along with the lubrication, this Ft value will start to come down. But there, of course, when there is no lubrication, Ft value will be the highest one, the optimum one. Okay, fine. I think that has cleared some of your doubt. Okay, anything else we'll discuss in the future classes, because we are not yet done with gears. Okay, so we have just finished 2 types of gears. Now we will be going to the third type, which is a bevel gear. Okay, just hold on, I'll change the slide. Yeah. So bevel gears, we have seen them, we use them in our daily life for many different purposes, just like what we do for helical and spur gears. Okay. So what is the difference that you can find when you compare spur, helical and bevel? So what are the things that strike you? One of the things that we immediately notice is that in spur and helical, whenever we discussed, we all assume that okay, there is a spur or a helical gear. One is parallel to the axis, one is inclined to the axis, the teeth. But whatever happens, their axes don't intersect. Okay, so this is an example of helical gear, and this is example of this is spur, this is helical. Their axes are all straight, kept at some distance, which we call a center distance. Okay, this is the center distance C between those two pair of gears, and they never intersect. Okay, but whereas in bevel gears, their axes should intersect. As you can see in this 3D picture over here, you have a smaller one which is called the pinion, the bigger one usually called a crown wheel or a crown gear. Okay, it looks like a crown, that is why it is called a crown wheel. And this intersection of the axis makes it a very beautiful option wherever a change of axis of transmission is required. Okay, you are suppose say doing rotating something in the x-axis, you will get a transmission in the y-axis. You can add any other axis you want depending on how the gear is set. Okay, z also you can beautifully do it. That is just by changing the quadrant in which the pinion and the crown wheel will lie. Okay, and one of the main big advantages of this is that you can make the pinion very small, giving it torque and leverage, so that a large amount of torque will be transmitted via the crown wheel. Okay, so this is an actual photograph that you can see. One of the some differences between each set of bevel gears is, now here for example all the teeth look straight here. All the teeth are straight with respect to the radius. If you draw a radial line, okay, from the center outward, they match the radius. Whereas here, they don't match exactly the radius. That is, you draw a straight line here and then the teeth begin to get curved. Okay, we'll discuss a little bit about that. Why that curvature is required for some of the applications. Okay, and how do we determine whether curvature is required or not? This example, what you see here, is called a straight bevel. A straight bevel is where the teeth are along the radius without any curvature. Okay, straight as though you draw a radius from the center to the outmost circumference. Okay, the outermost layer that is the circumference of the crown wheel. So both the pinion teeth are also straight. The crown wheel or the gear wheels are all, the gear teeth are also straight. So based on the shape of teeth, they are divided in two categories. One is called straight bevel, as you can see in the first picture here. Elements of the tooth are straight lines. What are their features? Sudden tooth engagement in this straight bevel resulting in noise. It is something like the straight bevel resembles the action of a spur gear. Okay, straight bevel is similar to, okay, sorry, not, I should write similar in other way. This is congruency. Okay, it is similar to spur gear. Straight bevels are similar to spur gears. Why? There is sudden tooth engagement. You can expect a line-to-line contact. One engages, and as it disengages, the second one will engage, and so on. Whereas in spiral bevel gear, Element tooth are spiral as discussed previously. Okay, as you can clearly see from the picture, they are not straight to the radius. They form a curved path. Okay, every tooth forms a curved path along the helix. Then gradual tooth engagement resulting in quieter operation. But obviously you can understand that what is the disadvantage of spiral bevel. Since it is gradual tooth engagement, there is larger friction when compared to the straight bevel. Okay. Based on pitch angle. Now you can change some of the pitch angles of this particular arrangement. Okay. Pitch angle is less than 90, equal to 90 or more than 90. Okay. External bevel gear, internal bevel gear and crown gear. What do you mean by external bevel? Pitch angle is less than 90 degrees. Pitch angle is less than 90 degrees. The first picture tells you that. Okay. This is external bevel. Now how the adjoining pinion will come? Okay, the pinion will come somewhat like this. Okay, so here this is the pitch angle that we are referring to. You project this axis on one part, allow it to intersect with the one more axis. The angle formed between these two is called as a pitch angle. So this is acute, less than 90 degrees. Acute angle which is less than 90 degrees. That is why it is called external bevel. Apex is located on the front side of the teeth. So this is the teeth. Apex is here. Okay, where it joins, it is called as the apex point. Or also you can project this also. Okay, this also you can project this. It forms a cone, imaginary cone. Okay, that point you call it the apex. It is the front side of the teeth. Front side of the teeth. In other words, it is in front of the teeth. What about internal bevel? So this is the internal bevel. Your adjoining pinion will be like this, and axis is like this, and this axis of the crown gear is like this. You look at this angle. This angle is more than 90, or obtuse angle. Such arrangement is called internal bevel. Why it is called internal? Again, if you project the cone, of this imaginary cone that is formed by joining all the tooth lines, this will be on the back side of the teeth. So it will not come in the front. This is the plane of the teeth. It will be back side. Here, this is the plane of the teeth. It is on the front side. Apex is here, A, but here it is on the back side. And that is the concept of internal bevel. Crown gear, it is very simple, straight away 90 degrees. So of course the one pinion is here. I'll draw just for the representation purpose. If I draw, this pinion will come somewhat like this. It will be straight, horizontal. This is vertical. So horizontal with vertical is always 90 degrees. And such an arrangement is called as the crown gear. Mounted on shafts, they're intersecting at an angle more than 90 degrees. This is application part. Okay, this is application part that is discussed here. We'll discuss more about it later. But one thing is there, that pitch angle becomes 90 degrees. And also you cannot find a cone here. Okay, you project this will simply form a cylinder or a flat surface. Okay, apex is the same as the level of the tooth itself. You just see this animation and what are the different types that are available. See, we started with spiral bevel gear. Okay, you can start with a spiral bevel gear. Suppose say you keep the crown gear as it is. Okay, this is the crown gear. I'll write, or also called ring gear. Okay, the one more word is called ring gear. Crown or ring. Okay. Now, suppose say you place the pinion directly marking, that is the axis intersecting at the center. Then what happens? you can use a spiral bevel gear, and also you can use a straight bevel gear. Okay, straight tooth also you can use. Suppose say you change the position, you will come across different types of gears. Okay, so one extreme is spiral bevel, directly where the axis of the pinion, this is the pinion here, axis of the pinion intersects with the axis of the crown directly, okay, at its central point or the rotational axis of the crown itself. There is one more extreme where the gear entirely shifts to the outer circumference. Such a type gives rise to worm and worm wheel. And here what happens is the ring gear will not have teeth here. In all here the teeth will be on the surface, whereas in worm gear the teeth will be external to the surface. Okay. In between this worm combination and spiral bevel combination, there are different combinations. So one of them is called spheroid. That example you can see here. What is the beauty of this combination? You see the axis, the planes definitely intersect, but the axes themselves don't intersect. The planes will intersect, but the axes don't intersect. You look at this. Okay, the axis is somewhere over here if you project it, and this axis is somewhere over here if you project it. Okay, you can see the difference now. So it is shifted or offset from the intersecting position. If it is directly intersecting, it can be given a spiral bevel or a straight bevel. Then you can shift it to the other side, slightly offset to one side by some distance. The only thing you have to take care is change the type of the spiral. This type of spiral is called as spheroid gear. You see how the teeth are curved, okay, and how this particular teeth is kind of conical shaped. Okay, it's a helix over a cone. It's a helix over a cone. Okay, so this is an example of a spheroid gear. There's one more called a hypoid gear. Okay, here also the axis is shifted, but largely, I mean, it is closer towards the crown gear or the central gear. So this is an example of a hypoid gear. Now you might imagine, okay, why we require these types? It all depends on what application you are going to choose. Okay, maybe you might have come across this or got an idea to understand, okay, why we require these types of gears. First of all, understand the application of bevel gears, that they are used to transmit motion in different axes. It will be in one axis, you want to transmit the same torque in other axis. Then if that is the case, then it will be of very high importance with respect to vehicles or automobiles, where you have engine on one axis, the propeller shaft on one axis, and finally the rotation of the wheel in some other axis. So just imagine that you have an engine over here, just example sake. Of course, you might have come across this. So there's an engine over here with all the cylinders, okay, rotation, the cooling fan, radiator, etc. Fine. And you have a propeller shaft that is coming out with all the universal joint and such things. Finally, it will come to the rear axle. Now this is about the, I'm talking specifically about a rear drive vehicle, where all the four-wheel, that is SUVs and trucks will carry. Okay, not the ones which generally come with low-cost cars. So here, what happens? Maybe in the gearbox also you will have a combination of bevel gears, but definitely the bevel gears will be stacked up inside here. Why? You see the axis of rotation is here. This is one axis, and you want one more axis which is perpendicular, which will finally rotate the wheel or the tire of the vehicle. Okay, so there is a 90-degree shift, okay, from the axis of rotation of the, that is coming from the engine towards the rotation of the wheel itself. So that is one part, okay, that is change of axis. The second part is inside this crown gear, okay, there is a crown gear inside. We call it the differential arrangement. Maybe in your lower semesters you have learnt about this. What happens in a differential? We know that the outer wheel of an automobile turns larger, or you can say the RPM is more at the same time when compared to the RPM of the inner wheel. Owing to this curvature difference, the inner wheel has to turn slower and outer wheel has to turn faster. But you have only one drive shaft, only one propeller shaft that is able to rotate. So how to adjust for this difference? You make use of a differential. So differential consists of planetary gears. And if you look at its construction, there will be 1, 2, 3 and 4. 4 different gears that are mounted in close proximity. So whenever this speed difference is required, the rotational difference is required, the gear ratio difference is required, what happens? These gears will self-rotate and adjust within themselves in such a way that positive transmission is maintained even though the speeds between them are different. Positive transmission load is maintained. So all these 4 gears are bevel gears. Okay, everything is bevel gears. They may be straight bevel. Usually they use straight bevel. Okay, this is the second thing that is highlighted here in just one vehicle. I'm just telling you. The third thing that is highlighted is this type of arrangement. That is, usually they don't go with spiral bevel, they go with hypoid gears. Now why hypoid? You can easily place this at the spiral bevel, right? You can easily place this directly here. Why this position? Offset position. This offset is why this is required for us. See, the vehicle in itself, the differential is the last thing that the vehicle would not want to touch with the ground, right? So there is an amount of clearance between the ground level, okay, and the vehicle itself. So in order to give it more room here, okay, so rather than it is something like, rather than directly putting it here at exactly at the center, we would like to offset it, okay, the propeller shaft and its assembly, we want to offset it so that there will be more clearance at the ground. Okay, so if you want to shift this entirely over here, okay, then we would definitely like to go with either a spiroid gear or a hypoid gear, but mostly hypoid is used because the spiral nature, okay, the spiral nature of the gears must be somewhat okay in order to bear the load bearing component. And
So
also,
what effect does it have on power transmitted?
which one? Power transmission slightly affected. Power transmission is slightly affected because here, of course, their effect is there. Yes, it is a finite amount of difference. The reason being that since you are using a helical combination, the gears not only touch, they slide. Touch plus slide. So that is equal to more friction, more wear. Okay. But one more thing is sudden engagement is avoided. Sudden engagement and disengagement is avoided. Okay. Sudden engaging and disengaging of the gears is avoided. So just imagine you are putting a very high shock load, okay, first gear, and you are climbing up a hill, and suddenly you cannot climb anymore, and directly you put the highest gear, that is first gear. Okay, there will be at that moment you will have to understand that there is a high impact load and high noise also. That also has to be avoided, right? In order to avoid all those things, we'll go with a hypoid gear and or a spiroid gear, but usually hypoid is one that they use, okay, just by making it some offset. So on one side you will get a higher clearance, okay, there will be more gap for you, more gap for you, more room for you. The other side the gap is reduced, whereas if you keep it exactly at the center, then both will be equal, and the propeller shaft you have to bring it more down, again the center of gravity of the vehicle is affected, and so on. So that is why we usually go for an offset. And one more thing is anything that slides and engages quietly also is good for us, even though it is heat transfer wise it is not appreciable for us because more heat is generated. But you know, this entire setup of whatever I discussed is fully in a pool of oil. In the entire differential, it is fully encased in a pool of oil completely. Okay. Completely encased in a pool of oil, so lubrication shouldn't be a problem. Okay, and that also gets transferred to the floating axle as well. So the entire, it will be running on suspended, kind of suspended on oil itself to all the components. So the heat dissipation also becomes quite good. Okay. Fine. So there are only 5 minutes left. So this is about the different types of gears. You can also have a spiral bevel gear also. Okay, but we cannot go for a very high helix over there. You see the helix angle is quite different from what the helix angle and the curvature that we see over here when you compare with hypod and spiral bevel gear. Okay, there are some bevel gears which are called zero bevel angles. So zero spiral angles. So just sketch here. Spiral bevel gears are like this. And the zero bevel gears, though they are they have a curvature, but you see the end result is that it starts and ends over here, okay, in a straight line. It starts and ends over in a straight line. So these are called zero bevel gears. But whereas here it starts here and ends over here. Okay, so that is the basic difference. Not much to explain here, just for information purposes we are giving. This is something very important. Mitre gears. As you can see here, what is the difference between these two? Even if you want to find a difference, you can't find any difference. Correct? You can't find any difference. They look exactly a mirror image of each other, and that is exactly what they are. They are totally identical. Totally identical, two bevel gears mounted on shafts which intersect. What identical means how? Both pitch angles are same, okay? Pinion and gear of mitre gears rotate at the same speed. Same speed means both diameters are same. The teeth profiles are same pitch circle diameter, number of teeth, module, everything is same. Then why are these gears used if there is no torque that is enhanced or reduced? Of course, this mitre gears, as the name itself suggests, they are not used for torque enhancement or reduction. They are only used for change of transmission axis. Their only job is to change the transmission axis. That's it. So these types of gears, where are they found? Of course, you can immediately think of the differential as one of the applications. Yes, you can call them as mitre gears. If they have the same identical number of pitch circle diameter and number of teeth, then you can definitely call them. At the same time, very small applications also use this. For example, your speedometer, okay, odometer, all meters in the automobile on our vehicles, they use an extensively use mitre gauge in order to change the way the dial is exhibited or it is calculated. Okay, maybe the digital ones have a lesser mitre gauge or no mitre gauge at all, but the analog ones definitely use these types of combinations, speedometers and odometers. Okay, fine. It's almost time, students. So I'll discontinue the class right now, and I'll post the link. Just hold on. Okay, just look at your chat box, meeting chat. The quiz will start exactly at 3. So you can try to open it now. Can you open it?
Not accepting response.
Yeah. It will open exactly at the server time of 3. So that means it will stop exactly at 3:30. We have given only half an hour. You can reconnect if there is some connection issue and all that. It's not a problem. But fill and send just one response. Okay. Please don't ask for grace time, connection issues, etc. as we have already mentioned. Yeah, let's check now.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay, all the best. Go ahead.
Can we leave the meeting, sir?
Hello. Is there any problem that you should
Can we
be?
leave the meeting?
Uh, no, you be in the meeting and then answer.
Okay.
Yeah. Students, you have only 4 minutes, less than 4 minutes to answer. So please hurry up. Your late responses won't be accepted. I can see only a handful of people responding so far. Students, hurry up. You have only 2 minutes. You have only 1 minute now. Those who have already submitted can leave the meeting. No issues.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, we'll meet you next time on Tuesday.